بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So a common accusation Shias make against Muhammad bin Ismā'īl al-Bukhari, author of the Ṣaḥīḥ, is that he was an enemy of Ahlulbait or a Nāṣibī. Now Shias often present two main arguments to make this point. Point number one is they appeal to the fact that Bukhari did not transmit any hadith through Ja'far al-Sadiq throughout his Ṣaḥīḥ. And the other argument they make is that Bukhari transmits hadiths in his Ṣaḥīḥ through well-known Nawāṣib or haters of Ahlulbait. So a simple analysis of Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhari is enough to dispel this baseless narrative. So the first obvious fact that indicates Bukhari's affinity with Ahlulbait is the fact that Bukhari himself transmitted ahadiths pertaining to the virtues of Ahlulbait in his Ṣaḥīḥ. So Bukhari, for example, has a chapter in his Ṣaḥīḥ called The Virtues of Fatima. Another chapter is called The Virtues of Ali ibn Abī Ṭāleb. Another chapter, The Virtues of al-Hasan al-Husayn, The Virtues of Ja'far ibn Abī Ṭāleb, The Virtues of the relatives of the Prophet ﷺ, and The Virtues of Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet. So if Bukhari was an Nāṣibī who hated Ahlulbait, there'd be no reason for him to transmit the fadā'il or the virtues of Ahlulbait in his book. It defeats the purpose. Now, regarding Ja'far al-Sadiq, they appeal to the fact that Bukhari excluded him from his Ṣaḥīḥ to argue that Bukhari had a theological bias against Ahlulbait. However, if one looks at the transmitters of Ṣaḥīḥ Bukhari, one recognizes that Bukhari actually had no bias against Ahlulbait, and he had no problem transmitting hadith through Ahlulbait. So, for example, Bukhari transmits a hadith through Muḥammad al-Bāqir, Ja'far's dad. He transmits a hadith through Ali ibn al-Husayn, who's Ja'far's grandfather. He transmits a hadith through Ali, through Fatima, through al-Fadl bin al-Abbas, through al-Husayn, through Muḥammad bin al-Hanafiyya, Kathir bin al-Abbas bin Abd al-Muttalib, and a bunch of other transmitters from Ahlulbait. So if Bukhari was actually a Nāṣibī who hated Ahlulbait and who purposely avoided transmitting from them hadith in his book, there would be no point in transmitting all these hadith from them. So that is the second point. Now, one may ask, well, why did Bukhari exclude Ja'far al-Sadiq from his Ṣaḥīḥ? Now, an important point must be made in this context. Not transmitting a hadith from a transmitter does not necessarily mean that Bukhari has a personal issue with that transmitter or a theological issue. As an example, Bukhari does not transmit any hadith through al-Shāfi'ī in his Ṣaḥīḥ. Now, this doesn't entail that Bukhari has any theological issues with al-Shāfi'ī. And al-Khatib al-Baghdadi actually elaborates on this in one of his books. And he says, what we say in Bukhari's exclusion of al-Shāfi'ī's hadith from his Ṣaḥīḥ was that it was not due to weakness in the transmission of al-Shāfi'ī. Rather, it was because Bukhari had access to higher chains of transmission with less men than those who would have transmitted through al-Shāfi'ī. So this is an exclusively technical reason as to why Bukhari didn't transmit hadith through al-Shāfi'ī. Bukhari had older teachers than al-Shāfi'ī who transmitted shorter asanid, such as Makī ibn Ibrahim. So if Bukhari were to transmit hadith through al-Shāfi'ī, it would defeat the purpose, which is to transmit shorter, more authentic asanid. And the same thing can be said about Ja'far, since Bukhari actually has teachers that are older than Ja'far, who transmit shorter asanid that are more authentic than Ja'far al-Sadiq. So again, him not transmitting a hadith through him does not entail that he has theological issues with him. He transmits a hadith through his dad, through his grandfather, his great-great-grandfather, his cousins, and his relatives from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the second argument they make is that Bukhari transmits a hadith through well-known Nawāṣib, such as Imran bin Hittan and Lumaza bin Zabbar, and other known Nawāṣib. Now, this is one of the weakest arguments that can be presented, because according to this logic, Bukhari would also be a Shi'i, since he also transmitted a hadith through well-known Shi'as and Rawāfid. So Bukhari in his Ṣaḥīḥ transmits a hadith through Abbad bin Yaqub, who is described in our books as a Rāfidi. Bukhari transmits a hadith through Abdul Malik bin A'yan, Zurara's brother, the famous Shi'i transmitter. Bukhari transmits a hadith through Awf bin Abi Jamila, through Sulaiman bin Qarm al-Dabbi, who are all Shi'as. So simply transmitting a report through a transmitter does not entail that Bukhari is endorsing that person's theology. Bukhari transmits from a variety of transmitters who also disagreed with him in theology, such as Qatada bin Di'ama, who was a known Qadari. He also transmits reports through known Qadariyya, Murji'ah, and other sects. So it must be made clear that Bukhari's transmission through Nawāṣib is not an issue because Bukhari also transmits ahadith through known Rawafid and Shia. And this is because Bukhari accepted a transmitter as long as he was honest and trustworthy in his hadith and accurate in his transmission. So it has nothing to do with the transmitter's sect or theology. In conclusion, the arguments that are usually presented to accuse Bukhari for being a Nāṣibī are all baseless narratives that are usually based on conspiracy theories that do not contain any form of evidence to back them up. In fact, going through Bukhari's Ṣaḥīḥ, one can see that Bukhari actually respects Ahlulbait and reveres them. And this is because he transmits a hadith through them and because he has chapters that signify their virtues with the authentic hadith that he mentioned in those chapters. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.